Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for watching my video and do all that good YouTube stuff. Share it, like it, hit the notification bell, thumbs up, subscribe, all the things that you do. Thanks for taking the time to watch my video and saving some money perhaps. I also invite you to check out the links in the description for some long-term savings with the stock market. 2002 Mitsubishi Montero Sport, doing front brake pads, front brake calipers, front brake rotors. There's a bar here you can jack up to get both sides off the ground. Sorry about that. Got plenty of metal on the side if you want to jack up one side at a time, not an issue. So we got our caliper mount, caliper, brake rotor, inner pad, outer pad. That's really it. There are 17 millimeter bolts on this application and 12 millimeter bolts. There's two bracket bolts here. That's a 10 millimeter. And then two 17 millimeter bolts as well for the caliper mount. And we'll be taking that stuff apart. Go ahead and turn the wheel to make it easier to access the caliper if you'd like. Since I'm doing brake calipers because the other one was frozen in place, I'm just going to go ahead and take off the two 17 millimeter bolts for the bracket. I'll make sure this loosens up okay, and then I'll take these two bolts off here. But then we'll just lay the whole assembly off to the side, and we'll worry about assembling our new caliper after the fact, after we get the rotor on. And also then you'll see how to remove and replace the brake pads and everything with the new caliper. Make sure you have a good flare wrench, it really helps. If you do think your calipers are good though, you gotta check them, or should check them. Get in here. Then you collapse the, guess it's, so that collapsed the pistons. You can't check the slides though, because I took the bolts out. But you want to do that and make sure your pistons collapse, and you want to make sure the slides are free too. So then it would slide back and forth on the slides if it wasn't for the undone bolts. Otherwise, 2002 Mitsubishi Montero Sport, you might just consider doing the calipers old. So the other side did not have it, but this side does. 10 millimeter bolts for the shield on the caliper. So I'll zip those off. So there may or may not be a little shim. I'm going to be on the lookout for a shim. It should be out here. This one did not have one. Two Phillips screws with a retainer. And then the wheel bearing tightening screwy device on there is behind that. And then the wheel bearing, outer wheel bearing. Take this off because I'm going to be placing the rotors. I need to get to those bolts. Both sides come apart pretty easy. Probably should be some kind of special tool to install this. It's got 2 holes, one on each side, and then it's got the bolt thread holes for the 2 little Phillips screws. Repack this with some grease, and they make seal removing tools you can use, or a large screwdriver. Now you don't want to do any damage to this. This is the tone ring for the speed sensor. There's one on each side, which will be transferring over to the new brake rotor, but we don't want to damage it and bend it, cause a problem with the signal. Grease looks pretty good in here still, so we can just we can repack this though. Depending on what it looks like in there, you can maybe wipe it all off and pack it with new fresh grease. I mean, it looks pretty good, still red. Hasn't been doused in water or anything. So these are all 12 and 14 millimeter nuts and bolts. Yeah, take them all off. We have a nice little mini wheel bearing packer full of wheel bearing grease. Drop the wheel bearing in there. And push down. This new grease has been pushed through. You're good to go. We'll coat the outer edge with some wheel bearing grease as well. Set that aside. We'll do the same for the other. So we snugged it down pretty tight and we're spinning this, and we'll back it off about a half a turn, and then we'll just turn it till it makes contact. Should be good there. On both sides, I found there was enough wiggle room, but it seemed to line up pretty darn good with my holes, so I feel good about that. Otherwise, you get a little screwdriver and maybe move that inner piece just a little bit to get your bolts to line up. I'd probably go a little tighter and not looser maybe myself. So your rotor will probably come with some kind of oily coating. You want to wash it up with some warm soap and water and towel dry it before you install it probably. Give it a wipe down because it might have gotten some grease on it somewhere. So now we should good and ready to install the caliper. Disassemble it a little bit. Just take one of these bolts out. It'll make it easier to install. I'll install this first on the vehicle and then I'll install that. These are friction fit devices, slide thingamajiggers. They just snap on and snap off, just a friction fit. You can just pull them on and off. Put a little lubricant on the brake pad on the ends where it's going to make contact with here on both pads. And it's basically ready to take over to the car and install. And you install that and tighten it to 65 foot-pounds, and we'll install the brake pads. $55 for those foot-pounds and 65 foot-pounds for the ones in the back, as I mentioned. We'll transfer the brake line to the new caliper. Left to loosen, right to tighten for all bolts. Let's try and start everything by hand. Of course, when I say that, this doesn't quite go in freely, but it is going, feel pretty good about it. Open up the bleeder screw and hopefully we'll see some air and bubbles and some fluid come out. Let it gravity bleed for a little bit, and then we will snug it down. Then we'll have someone assist us in bleeding the brakes the rest of the way under pressure. So we have someone inside pumping the brakes, and they're going to hold it down. While they hold it down, we're going to open up the brake bleeder. Shoot some fluid out. We can look for some nice steady streams of fluid. Then I tighten it, then they'll let up and start pumping again 3 or 4 times. Okay, so they'll be pumping, then they'll hold the brake pedal down, and I'll open it up, and that pressure will shoot fluid and air out. Okay. Usually after some good gravity bleeding and everything, it doesn't take too long at all. Looking pretty good. Then we'll go to the other side and do the same thing. We'll take it to the master cylinder. The master cylinder on this side, it's a screw on and screw off cap. It says .3 on it. Little warning. .3 has a minimum and a maximum on it. So you want to shoot to get your fluid somewhere in the middle. Maybe use a turkey base or a clean rag and suck it up so if you're collapsing pistons, fluid doesn't flow over the edge. So we've got our bleeding all done. Step on the brakes a few times to set the brake pedal in place and pads, everything's set. Can feel pretty good about setting it off there. Then it's on maximum. That should be replacing your front brake pads, rotors, calipers on your 2002 Mitsubishi Montero Sport. Good luck to you. Lug nuts, 73 to 87 foot-pounds. Put the wheel on. Tighten in a crisscross pattern as tight as you can with the wheels off the ground. Then when you can lower it so the wheel's touching the ground. When it's touching, you can tighten it up to your torque specs or make it tight like you do. And this can just snap over the wheel. Got a little slot there. You can pop this off with the screwdriver. You see, it just grabs those little tangs there. Good luck to you.